So now we're going to look at solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, or as sometimes we call it, the minus b formula. So you can use this formula to solve any quadratic equation, but typically if we know that the answer to the quadratic equation is going to contain decimal places, then we know we cannot factorize it. We're going to have to use this quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is fairly straightforward, and it tells us that if ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, in other words, that's just the general description of any quadratic equation, and we want to solve for x, well, x will equal minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is the formula that we can use to solve any quadratic equation. So let's have a look at an example here. The one I'll go through with you guys is this question 3 here, 2x squared minus 3x minus 8 equals 0. So we've got the 2x squared minus 3x minus 8 equals 0. I want to solve this for x, and I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So the first thing to do is identify what is a, what is b, and what is c. So we can see here a is the number in front of x squared, so therefore a is equals to 2. B is the number that's in front of x. Alright, so therefore in this case b is minus 3. The minuses and pluses are important, so if it's a minus 3, remember to include the minus. And then c is the constant at the end, and in our example here c is minus 8. After we identify a, b, and c, it really is just a case of being very careful and filling in to this formula here. And my advice to you is to use brackets every time you're filling in A, B, and C, especially if you're going to be typing it into a calculator. It's important to be clear and use your brackets. So let's have a look here. X equals, so we've got minus B. In our case, that's minus 3. Then we've got plus or minus, so plus or minus the square root, let's move this a little bit, the square root of B squared. So b squared is minus 3 squared. Then we've got minus 4ac, right? Minus 4ac minus 4a, which is 2, c, which is minus 8, all over 2a, all over 2 times 2. Okay, so once you've it filled into the formula, it really is just a case of being careful and going through it step by step and doing our additions and our calculations. So minus 3 is 3, plus or minus the square root, minus 3 squared. Now it's minus 3 in a bracket to be squared, so that means minus 3 multiplied by itself, which will be a positive 9. Then minus 4 by 2 by minus 8. So minus 4 by 2 is minus 8. Minus 8 by another minus 8 is plus 64, all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So we've got x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 64 all over 4. So I'm going to continue that over here on the right hand side of the page. So next line, x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 73 all over 4. Alright, and then the next stage is to go get your calculator and type in what is the square root of 73. So continuing with that, you'll get x is equals to 3 plus or minus, now the square root of 73 is 8.544 all over 4. The next thing to do is to deal with this plus minus here. How do we deal with that? Well, that just means we've two separate answers. One answer when we take the plus option, and a different answer when we take the minus option. So we take the plus option and the minus option separately. And you can see this here. Taking the plus option is 3 plus 8.544 over 4. Taking the minus option, 3 minus 8.544 over 4. So we actually split it into two separate answers. And you remember that quadratic equations have two answers anyway. So this is where we get our two separate answers from. Then we just continue. X is equal to 3 plus 8.544. That's 11.544 divided by 4. And on the right here, 3 minus 5.44. So that's going to be x equals minus 5.544 all over 4. And then the last bit to do is a division. So we finish with the division. So dividing 4 into 11.54, we get x equals 2.886. And on the right hand side, we'll get x is equals 2, so minus 5.544 divided by 4 is minus 1.386. Now just to finish up, remember if we look back at the question, it said solve the following equations correct to 2 decimal places. So we make sure we give our answer, our final answer, to 2 decimal places. So my final answer on the left here is x is equals to 2.89, and here x is equals to minus 1.39. So here I have my 2 solutions to the quadratic equation, which I calculated using the minus b formula. All right, so we use the quadratic formula in order to calculate our 2 solutions to the equation. So that is how you do the quadratic formula, or the minus b formula. The best thing for you guys now is to practice some of these questions, check your solutions online. And for access to questions, solutions, graded quizzes and more, visit www.linearmaths.com.